Hey everybody, this is Gavin Verhey here with Marshall Sutcliffe at the Star City Games booth here in Seattle, Washington. Marshall, you're not well known for your limited expertise. You do the Limited Resources podcast. Yeah. You're really active on Twitter. You know a lot about the format, and you're really become this kind of foothold in the community. A lot of people know you and turn to you for limited advice. You're here. You picked up second in the draft open today, losing your last round, unfortunately. What do you feel is the secret to M12 draft?
Well, in this case, it was really interesting because when we got to the finals, there was actually I think the two extremes for M12 draft. My deck, which is not normally where I want to be, it was black-red with about this many 2-drops and this many 1-drops and 2-drops, and then like my high point was a 6, it was Flame Blast Dragon, which I wouldn't have run except for that it's Flame Blast Dragon. And then you contrast that with my opponent, who was 3 colors, and he had Archon of Justice and a Frost Titan, at least. So he was on the bomb end of things. He basically was trying to keep the board stalled out until he could land a bomb, and I was trying to do the opposite. I was trying to jam him in. So to me, that kind of describes the two extremes that are M12 draft, and they're both available archetypes. And
you feel like the format's pretty fast then? Or can be pretty fast?
Yeah, like my deck was really fast. Like I beat him on turn 5 in game 2. Like I cast a turn 2 guy, I put the +3/+1 enchantment on him.
Right.
Bash, Goblin Grenade.
And that's that,
yeah,
right?
And he's stumbling around with his mana, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, so speaking of the auras now, this is a format, traditionally auras aren't that playable, Unholy Strength, like not a card you ever want to play with, but in this format, it seems like auras might be more playable than ever because of the speed. How do you feel about that? Or do you feel like they're still kind of very risky?
So I'm kind of nitty. Like, I hate playing auras in general. This is the first time I even played that one. But the thing is that hexproof makes auras a lot better. You know, Divine Favor, they tacked on some life gain, which normally life gain is kind of incidental, but when you put it on something that actually does something, it ends up being relevant. And if you can stick that on something that has hexproof, the aggro decks, it's a huge hit. It's a big swing in the wrong direction on the life swing, and they can't get through it. So I think that they really made a push to make auras better, not quite like they did in Rise, where it was like, look, we're going to really, you're going to get to keep your guy even if he dies.
Right.
But at the same time, I think it ended up being that they're stronger than normal, but still my second choice to like almost any reasonable creature.
Sure. I mean, have you drafted like the Auramancer deck or anything crazy like that?
No, I leave that to Conley and those guys. I don't draft stuff like that. I want value, man.
Value. So speaking of value, what do you think are some of the undervalued cards in M12 the players could be drafting higher?
Well, the one that I'm always harping on is Stave Off.
Stave Off.
I love me some Stave Off. And it's funny because we just talked about auras. And one of the reasons why Stave Off is good is because of the auras, because you can punish players that play them, assume that now the creature is just that big and that good, and then when you can stave off in mid-combat, you can get a 2-for-1 or at least a 1-for-1 out of it. So that's one of the cards that I really like. It's kind of hard to say that it's underrated, but Merfolk Looter, I still find it's going later than it usually should, and that card, man, I love me some Looter.
It's one of those cards that's underrated in the sense that it's insane. People just aren't taking it highly enough.
Exactly. Like, everybody knows it's good, but I think it's better than even they think.
Yeah. Like, you'll be happy first picking it out of a pack a lot of the times.
I have done it many times.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, those make some of the undervalued cards. What about overvalued cards? Like, what are people taking? Maybe was good in past formats, but this format, not so much.
Well, I think the auras are slightly overvalued. I think people are running them as if they were just straight value cards that you just throw into any deck.
Sure.
And they're not. They're high risk, high reward cards. And I think, what I found is that big green cards like Stampeding Rhino, those just don't hold up to the aggro decks. Like when a guy casts a Gorehorn Minotaurs on you and it's a 5/5 for 4 and he's in an aggro red or red-black deck and your turn 5 play doesn't even block it or can't even trade with it, I don't think that you can really run those at this point. I've found those like Stampeding Rhino, any of the overcosted. I mean, he's now overcosted, even though traditionally he's solid value.
Right. Yeah. I think green has a problem in that set in this set especially because like you want to play like your Stampeding Rhinos and your 6-mana 5/6s and such, and I mean, they're just not nearly as impressive as they have in past formats.
There's green decks with Overrun, and there's green decks without it, and that's the line.
If you guys have any specific questions for Marshall, tweet them at us and we'll get them to you. Of course, you can also catch him on Twitter at MarshallLRcast.
That's right, yeah.
But tell us about how your drafts went. So you made the finals of the second draft open, or first draft open, sorry. So how'd your first draft go? What'd you do?
So I ended up drafting a deck that I've actually drafted 3 times this weekend. I did an 8-4 here yesterday, and then I did like a home draft, and then today, which is blue-green overrun, basically. So in my first pack, I opened it up, and it's kind of a weak pack, and I took the vampire outcasts, the ones that have Bloodthirst and Lifelink, and they get 4/4.
Okay.
And I thought that was probably the best card in the pack, and then I get shipped an overrun, and I'm like, I don't like Overrun. I like playing Overrun. I don't like it as a card, though, but I can definitely see why it's in the set. Anyway, I took that, and then I got shipped a Merfolk Looter. And I said to myself, okay, well, I guess I'm going to be in blue-green Overrun deck, and that's exactly what I ended up in. I ended up with 2 Looters, just the 1 Overrun, no mind controls. But I also had a Ponder, I had a Divination. I was able to basically sift through my library, play enough guys to just create critical mass and then go, do I win?
Yeah.
And the answer was yes for the most part today.
Yeah, that works out pretty well. Are there any keys to the archetype cards that you are better in, like, say you like open an Overrun, you almost take it most of the time, then you can kind of build around it. Are there any cards that are good in that archetype you might value higher than normal?
So there's 2 cards that come to mind. The first one is Grizzly Bears, and I know that sounds weird, but I played a playset of them in the draft yesterday, and I had 2 today. Yeah, the thing is that they do exactly what you want. They can trade for some of the bloodthirsted guys, the 4/2, and then the smaller ones if you need to. Of course, you don't want to be trading in Overrun. But basically, they allow you to do a traditional curve of going turn 2 guy, turn 3 something, and then turn 4 2 guys, and now you're set up for an Overrun for the win. Right. The other card that comes to mind, and it's interesting because it's kind of a double-edged sword, is Sacred Wolf.
Okay.
They can't kill it. It has hexproof, so it's going to be there, and it's got high toughness for, high power for what you pay. The problem is that it can't block at all, basically.
Right.
Like it can trade with a few things, but I mean, they start hitting you with 1/1s, they're skeleton or something. You're like, yep, take it, because you can't even block it.
Right.
But when you do actually overrun, it represents 6 points of damage that they can't interact with.
Right. Yeah.
So those are the 2 that I kind of look for. But you do have to be careful, like with the Sacred Wolves, you don't want to have like 3 of them and just be trading.
Unless you're like the heavy aura deck or something like that, right? And then
yeah,
you can consider it.
Then I would do it, like if I had Troll Highs or something like that. But again, when a deck that revolves around Overrun, and I don't mean that you have it in your deck. What I mean is you have it in your deck and you have ways to get at it.
Right.
Like either you're in black with the Tutor or you're in blue with looting and drawing and pondering. I think that basically you have to value creatures higher than the auras, right? I mean, a Troll Hide's nice if you get it on a hexproof guy. It can do a lot of work by itself, but it doesn't ultimately. I mean, 1/1/1 needs 4 more damage when you actually trigger the Overrun. So I tend to go with that.
How about your second draft? What happened in that one?
So this one was a big departure for me because I've been playing these. I don't think the Overrun deck is necessarily a control deck, but it's very much a plan-based deck. It's like I'm going to do this and then I'm going to get there. And what ended up happening in this one is I ended up basically kind of being forced into, like, I passed a Chandra's Outrage in the first pick. And I wasn't thinking, I passed that knowing that, like, I'm not going to get any red in the second pack, and I'm just going to pretty much avoid red from this point on. And I did for the first pack, and black was flowing strong. I ended up with 2 Soren's Thirst, I think, the damage.
BB, yeah.
Yeah, the BB one. Anyway, and I ended up pretty good out of pack 1 in black, but I didn't really have a second color. And so when the cards started coming back to me, they were all red. And I was like, I couldn't quite figure out why, but sometimes it just happens like that. You just never know. And I got shipped a bunch of good red stuff, except for it was like all the small spells for red. It was Shock instead of Incinerate. It was Goblin Pikers. It was all type, like Goblin Tunneler, the stuff like that. And so I started snatching that stuff up, and I said, okay, well, I guess I'm just all in black-red. Like, play a bunch of guys, get in there, and then try to finish off with, like, I played a Lava Axe. And, like, people that know me, I don't ever play Lava Axe. Like, that is not what I want to be doing. But it was quite good in my deck, really. So.
Very cool. Well, I'm glad that worked out for you. It looks like the next round is starting. So,
okay.
But real fast.
Oh.
Just anything else you want to give for M12? Any ideas or things that you think work out better in this format that you might not consider otherwise? We have a couple minutes. So.
Okay, well, one thing I want to say don't do is the mill deck.
Yeah, don't try that one at home,
No,
kids.
I just watched Conley. He's doing the second draft open, and he's got a mill deck. But it's funny, it's kind of disguised because he actually milled out a good friend of mine in the third game, and in the second game it was basically inevitable. But what actually happened was that he had a control deck that was able to get the board controlled.
Okay.
And whether he had Jace's Erasures or more creatures with evasion or something, he would have won either way. And I just want people to know that, you know, you got to be careful when you start going down this mill path, because I've heard a lot of people talking about that as a deck, and I don't think it is one.
Yeah, the performance is so fast, you can just lose really quickly.
Yeah, I think the way you really want to go is you want to be red-black aggro, or red-blue aggro, or red-blue with value spells is a place I want to be as well. And beyond that, if you're going to go control, you have to go big guys. Probably green is going to be a support color for you because you're going to want giant spiders and you're going to want big guys to finish, like the big worm, the bloodthirst worm, the 6/6
that guy's
trampler.
huge.
He's massive when he comes down, and he really is really tough to deal with, even for, I mean, like Doomblade is pretty much what you're looking at. They can pacify it or something, but yeah. So I'd go, to me, I'm looking to go extreme in one direction. I don't want to be the guy in the middle.
Right, you don't want to be the guy who casts stampeding rhinos, right?
Right, and see, that falls in line with what I'm saying here, right? It's like, you just don't want to be the guy who's doing stuff in the middle where one guy just kills you really quick and the other one controls you. You know, a classic like mid-game versus do you want to go later or short? I want to go one or the other.
So that lines up pretty well with one question. I have time for maybe a quick question from Joe Spanier. Shock or Merfolk Looter? Pack one, pick one.
For me, it's Merfolk Looter.
Merfolk Looter, okay.
Yeah, I mean, Shock is good, but it's not Lightning Bolt. If you make that Incinerate, I'm probably taking Incinerate.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, but for me, like, Looter opens up so many doors, and it just, like, if you stick a Looter, you don't lose because of Mana Screw. You don't lose because of Mana Flood anymore. And that, I value that very highly. Like, it reduces the variance in your deck a lot, and if you draft solid cards like I tend to, like value-type cards, he's going to get you to those. If you draft high variance swingy cards, I don't think he's quite as good. But I think he's a little better than Shock.
Oh, great. Well, we're got to head out, Marshall, but thanks you so much for coming to the booth. It was great. Good work on your job.
Appreciate
Good work today. Once again, you can catch him on Twitter, Marshall LRcast, also podcast, limited resources, great stuff. Keep up the good work.
Hey,
great having you in here. We'll be back in just a second with